Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave! With a box of scraps!
It was only a matter of time, wasn't it? We all knew that Smash Bros. Was going to come to the Switch at some point. It just dropped at the time when many of us weren't expecting it. I mean, segue from big Splatoon 2 news into the Inkling teaser?
Nintendo, you magnificent bastards, I played your game!
Of course, now that the hype train is making the rounds again, it's of course carrying the boxcar of roster speculation. Whether we get a deluxe edition of Smash 4 or a proper new game, I'm leaning toward the latter given the series development cycle, I'm fairly sure that the new additions won't stop with our funky fresh seafarers. So it's time for another wish list from me. Basically, no cut characters, no assist trophies, and I'm not including characters or franchises from the previous list. Other than that, any video game character that's appeared or will appear on a Nintendo-supported platform is fair game. But before we get started, you can help sick and injured children smash despair with a donation to my Extra Life campaign by clicking the link in the description below. All proceeds will go to benefit the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Alright, for fun or for glory, it's game time! Okay, let me start by addressing an issue with my previous list, specifically with my number one pick, Wonder Red. I'll admit it, a huge part of the reason I put him there was because I was writing the hype from the Wonderful 101. As a fighter, though, it would be difficult to make it work while maintaining the spirit of the game he came from. I mean, take away the Unite morph hook, and he's pretty much Beautiful Joe with another personality. And if that's the case, then why not just bring in Joe? Okay, I'll admit that the Red Comet of the movie dimension is the pipest of dreams, considering two of Capcom's icons already crashed the party, but in terms of moveset viability, Joe's style more than has that covered. The source material has plenty of moves from his gadgets to his fighting techniques. I mean, he does have beat 'em up in his blood after all. And not only is there a lot of substance to his fighting, but it's just oozing with style. He's got martial arts he learned from watching superhero movies, he's got boomerangs, he's got bombs he can juggle, he's got all sorts of stuff. Heck, his final smash could bring in his signature VFX into play. Imagine slowing the opponents down and zooming in to smash them off the stage. And it's not like Capcom has forgotten about him. Rashid got a Beautiful Joe costume in Street Fighter V Arcade Edition, and Joe Analistor appeared in Puzzle Fighter Mobile, shortly before it was announced that the game would be going down in July.
Though, considering it was a mobile game to begin with, it's probably for the best. Puzzle Fighter's best played as a console or PC game anyway.
Smash 4 broke a few established norms as far as characters are concerned. Aside from two third parties getting a second rep, Ryu from Street Fighter also marked the first traditional fighting game character in Smash. So hey, SNK celebrating their 40th anniversary this year, and considering that plenty of Neo Geo games have been popping up on the Switch, not to mention SNK Waifu Wars, I think Terry Bogard ought to throw his hat in the ring. Terry is a long-standing veteran of the fighting game genre, and is about as synonymous with the Neo Geo as Ryu is to Capcom's fighting games. And considering that KOF 14 has brought SNK back into the limelight, I'd say relevance is no issue here whatsoever. I mean, Terry's got a Smash-approved moveset almost ready-made. Power Wave for his standard B, retooling it for mid-air would probably be the only issue. Burning Knuckle for a side B as long as you don't go off the edge like Little Mac, Rising Tackle for an up B, hopefully with enough horizontal coverage to make it a better recovery than Cloud's, and Crack Shoot would make for a good down B. He's even got a couple options for a final smash. Option A, the Power Geyser for huge frontal coverage. Seriously, have you seen that thing? Option B, if you really want an attack with impact, break out the Buster Wolf. Like Ryu, he'd probably play a lot like a traditional fighting game character, so people who know how to play as Terry in Fatal Fury and KOF would feel right at home. In all seriousness, if we got an SNK rep, I'd be more than okay with Terry.
I mean, who else would they try to get in? Geese? He's too busy beating the shit out of the Mishima family.
On my original list, I included Shantae and Shovel Knight as a way to celebrate Nintendo's relationship with indie developers. A relationship which has only grown since the release of the Switch. I mean, just look at all the stuff we're getting. However, there is a third indie star that didn't quite make the first list. And pardon the pun, but you're in for quite the shocking development.
And cue facepalm!
Hailing from the Mega Man spiritual successor that Inafune didn't totally screw up, Gunvolt would bring quite an electric repertoire to the table, both figuratively and very literally, given the nature of his adept abilities. I'd imagine him as a speedy fighter with weak single hits, but high combo potential and lots of projectile options. The whole style of his games features him zipping through levels at lightning speed and zapping enemies with enough voltage to make Pikachu jealous. So naturally, this could translate well to a Smash moveset. Here's how I see it. His standard B could have him whip out his trusty sidearm to tag an opponent. Then he could deploy his Flash Field with his down B to shock tagged enemies for a brief moment. We gotta keep things balanced after all. He's also got an electrified air dash that could work for a recovery, and we could use some of his in-game specials like his Astrosphere or Lux Caliber for a side B. And for his final smash, Voltic Chains, full stop. Electrified chains covering the screen and damaging anyone who touches them? Boom! Instant shock therapy. Considering that GV got his start in the 3DS, not to mention that both of his games got ported to the Switch, I feel like this guy could really fit in with a Smash cast. Of course, we'd have to have Lumen's songs as stage names. That's the most important part. Remember what I said about new IPs not doing so well for Nintendo? Well, chalk that up to me being wrong again. I mean, the reason the Inklings got into the new Smash Bros. In the first place was because Splatoon was such a breakout hit. Heck, it was enough to get a straight sequel instead of a port like a lot of Wii U games got. And ARMS, while not the same super success that Splatoon was, hasn't exactly been a sales flop either. Given this, a character from this unorthodox fighting game is well within the realm of possibility. The safe money's on Springman, considering he's, well, the game's poster boy, but let's say Nintendo decided to be ballsy and add another combatant. I have an interesting choice in mind.
Because poor literacy
Shouldn't prevent us from getting a new villain in Smash Bros. Okay, technically Dr. Coyle is just obsessive and not actually evil per se, but she's pretty much the game's de facto villain, so let's roll with it. Now, regardless of how many characters from ARMS, if any, make the roster, I would imagine they would have some common threads. I figured the elastic punches would be specials, adaptable to the various effects based on the wide assortment of arms that they could equip. For instance, Springman has rockets, burning punches, and whatnot. But what sets Dr. Coyle apart from the rest? For one, I figure her style of movement can make for a bit of a floater. Maybe not to the extent of Mewtwo, but still enough to give her a unique air game. Of course, you also have to take into account the assortment of gadgets at her disposal. I mean, one of her default arms does give her a projectile, but she also has stuff like icy nunchucks and an electric parasol, not to mention her invisibility power. It all feeds into the rad scientist's eccentric and crazy personality, something that would be more than welcome in Smash Bros. Just one thing. For her final smash, she better have a rush attack and not summon Headlock.
Because seriously, fuck Headlock.
You know, with each passing day, I feel like the possibility of Simon Belmont, or heck, a Castlevania character in general, getting into Smash Bros. Seems to shrivel up more and more until even a raisin seems plump in comparison. And considering that the latest announcement concerning this franchise is an iOS game that's looking like a rehash of Harmony of Despair, I honestly doubt that feeling is going to change anytime soon. But, well, Konami still has one character who's been getting some love.
A surprising amount, actually, considering Konami lately.
Okay, I'll admit it. Super Bomberman R should not have initially launched in the state it was in. But that alone should not be a reason not to include a character like Bomberman in the roster. On the contrary, the mere fact that the game was a Switch launch title, before being shipped to other platforms due to its relative success, should be reason enough to justify his inclusion. Our explosive friends had a run on a number of systems, but some of his best games were on Nintendo platforms, from his debut on the NES to a solid transition to 3D on the N64. And I feel that a place in Smash Bros. Would be a good way to celebrate that history. But could Smash Bros. Make a moveset work for him? Well, considering what they've done for other characters, I'm convinced that they can make a moveset for virtually anyone. So, Bomberman has had a vast variety of bombs at his disposal, right? Aside from his standard bombs, he's had ice bombs, electric bombs, even wind bombs, which can make for a great recovery. It would make for a playstyle centered around controlled chaos, as, just as in his own games, his bombs could backfire and damage him if he's not careful. It would be unusual, but hey, considering what Nintendo's done with the Wii Fit Trainer and the Duck Hunt Dog, among others, I guess anything's possible. And if you're gonna do something unusual, hey, might as well have a blast with it. I'm gonna be blunt here. While I'd love to see Beautiful Joe get into Smash Bros., his chances are basically non-existent. For one, like I've brought up before, Capcom already has 2 representatives in Smash 4, being 2 of the company's most iconic characters. And even if Capcom made an arrangement to have a 3rd representative, Joe wouldn't even be the top choice. Mainly because Capcom is still making bank zenny on Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter World has been a huge success for Capcom, but we may not have even gotten to this point were it not for Nintendo playing host of games that led up to it. Cash money aside though, Monster Hunter would still be the better choice both from a gameplay standpoint and an aesthetic standpoint. On the one hand, as much crap as Marvel Infinite gets, it did show us how Monster Hunter could work in a fighting game setting. The nameless slayer of kaiju has a lot of weapon possibilities, from dual blades to great swords to even ranged weapons like bowguns. They could all work together to create a dynamic and unique take on the tried and true sword wielder template we've seen time and again. We could even draw from Monster Hunter World and throw in the slinger/grappling hook as a means of recovery. And for a final smash, we could even have a sequence in which the poor victims get wrecked by one of the real stars of the show. From a visual standpoint, the Hunter would be one of the few cases in which the alts would be more than just color swaps. Seriously, have you seen how many different armor sets you can make in the games? Each one could be an alt, and that's not even taking into account male and female hunters. And the various hunting grounds could make for beautiful stages, with all kinds of monsters as potential stage hazards.
After all, we have to have some element of danger. I mean, it is Monster Hunter after all.
Gonna be honest here, these last 4 make the most sense to me, which may mean they have no chance whatsoever, but for now, let's just go with it. So, Kirby was joined by his best frenemy and his fellow defender of Popstar from the shadows since Brawl, and to be fair, they were the most logical newcomers from said franchise. However, Return to Dreamland gave us a perfect candidate to join them. And to be perfectly honest, while there's plenty of Smash Brothers in the cast, there's a distinct lack of bona fide bros. With all the sword users in Smash, it's about time we threw a spear user into the mix, and one of the best characters to lead the charge is our old buddy Waddle Dee, specifically Bandana Waddle Dee. Aside from the fact that he's absolutely adorable, Bandana Dee would give us a fun and unique playstyle which would feel right at home in a game like Smash. His use of the spear in both Return to Dreamland and his encore appearance in Star Allies provides an almost complete moveset right out of the gate. Standard B could be a spear throw, side B could be a gale thrust like in Battle Royale, down B could be a moondrop, and up B could be the cutest recovery in the history of the series. In general, D could be a small and quick fighter who deals quick damage with decent range with his spear moves, but as a trade-off, he'd be extremely light and could be knocked away very easily, almost as much as Kirby or Jigglypuff. As for a final smash, remember DDD's final smash from Brawl? Yeah, how about we give Bandana Dee a chance to actually make it good? Imagine a whole brigade of Ds and Doos rushing the stage with spears, parasols, and beams. If the opponents don't die from the damage, they'll probably end up dying from cuteness overload instead. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to go. Go ahead, try and think of one. It can't be done. A new Smash Bros. Game is likely to bring a new Pokemon with it. Melee brought us Mewtwo and Pichu, Brawl brought us Lucario and the Pokemon Trainer, which was a 3-in-1, and in Smash 4, Charizard left his trainer behind, and Greninja arrived from Kalos. Thing is, the most recent generation at the time of the release of a new Smash tends to add a new rep. Reason I bring this up is because the most recent generation as of this video is Sun and Moon and its Ultra counterparts. Now we currently have a Fire-type starter and a Water-type starter on the roster, but unless you count Ivysaur with the Pokemon Trainer, which I don't, we've never had a Grass-type starter. Time to fix that. Decidueye, I choose you! True, Incineroar and his heel wrestling style could make for a decent moveset, but I don't think Charizard is willing to give up his seat on the bus. As for Decidueye, his experience in Pokken Tournament Deluxe proves that he has some fighting game chops. The final stage of Rowlet's evolution has a solid mix of physical moves and long-range zoning capabilities. Melee moves like Leaf Blade and Fury Attack could give Decidueye some options at close range, while projectile moves like Leafage and its signature Spirit Shackle could make this brave bird dangerous from a distance. Combining the two styles would make Decidueye rather unique among the Pokemon entrants. Speaking of Brave Bird, it can make for a pretty awesome up-B. And for the final smash, we have a couple options here. Option 1, give Decidueye its exclusive Z move, Sinister Arrow Raid, to cover the screen in deadly arrows. Option 2, take a page from Pokken DX and give the bold Borbit's Burst attack to create a Leaf and Arrow Nado.
Did I just give B-Movie Hollywood an idea for our Sharknado spin-off? Oh god, I hope not. That would be terrifying beyond imagination.
While I did call Shulk being in Smash 4, I'm not gonna be some pretentious dick and pretend that Nintendo's been spying on me. Unless you are spying on me, Nintendo, in which case that's creepy and probably illegal and you should probably stop before I file a lawsuit. Anyway, the original Xenoblade Chronicles Cult status was a major contributor to Shulk's inclusion in Smash 4. And now that Xenoblade's become a bona fide franchise for the Big N, it's not a stretch for Minato Boy to expect some company. And while the crew from X may be stuck on a different planet, adding Rex and Pyra shouldn't be more than Smash 5 can manage. We've had dual characters in the past, after all we had Rosalina and Luma as a duo in the last game, and the only reason the Ice Climbers were cut was because of the limitations of the 3DS. With the Salvager Rex and his blade partner Pyra, we could have a new take on the dual character archetype. In Xeno 2, Rex's arts power up depending on how close he is to his blade, and considering that he has a wide variety of driver arts at his disposal, like Anchor Shot and Double Spinning Edge, the devs should have no trouble at all coming up with a viable moveset. Pair that up with the fact that the Aegis has a second form in the form of a blonde bombshell named Mithra, and you've got potential to pump up Rex's strategic value even more. Shulk has his Minato arts, and Rex has his form-shifting Aegis. Works out pretty well, I must say. Each of them even has their own blade specials if you want to talk Final Smashes. I'm sure that there's more I could go into here, but I haven't gotten as far into Xenoblade 2 as I would have liked by now. This thing called an office job has to take precedence, you know.
And then there's the aforementioned Monster Hunter World, and then, well, I guess the rest of the pieces just come together. Note to self. Learn to distinguish valid reasons from excuses.
Now before we move on, I've got some honorable mentions, some of which didn't fit the criteria from my list. Sora from Kingdom Hearts, Neku from The World Ends With You, Travis Touchdown from No More Heroes, Zero from Mega Man X, Waluigi from the Mario spin-offs, Lyn from Fire Emblem, and finally, Crash Bandicoot. With Fire Emblem catapulting from obscurity to one of Nintendo's flagship franchises, thanks in large part to the financial success of Awakening, I need to bring up an elephant in the room with the current Smash reps. 6 Emblemites, 6 Sword users. Sure, Robin's Magic and Corrin's Dragon Power gave us some variety, but even still, that's just a third of the standard weapon triangle. I mean, can't we mix it up a little bit more? They could give us a mage like Celica, an axe wielder like Hector, a lancer like Ephraim. Or they could just throw us a giant fucking curveball.
A prospect which I welcome with open arms. With one of them clutching my smartphone.
Hold up! You're putting a character from a mobile game at number 1? Yeah, a mobile game that's been making Nintendo money hand over fist. Besides, I said that characters from games on Nintendo-supported platforms were fair game. And as of March of 2016, that includes mobile devices. Rest in peace, Miitomo. Anyways, Fire Emblem Heroes has proven to be a hit for Nintendo, thanks to its wide assortment of characters from across the franchise. So what better way to represent Nintendo's foray into the mobile market than one of the heroes that the game introduced? While Alphonse and Sharina are the OCs that have been around from the start, I just think that Fjorm from Book 2 would make for a more interesting fighter. First off, the obvious being that Fjorm is a lance user, which right there would make a departure from the previous Emblem reps. Using her lance could make for a truly unique moveset unlike any of the existing Fire Emblem fighters. And that's not counting the fact that her weapon, Leipter, is an ice-based weapon, which, when combined with the lance qualities, could make her fighting style truly amazing. It would take some creativity to make a moveset for her, but that hasn't been a problem for Smash Bros. In the past. Characters like Fox and Captain Falcon, and heck, even the original Fire Emblem fighters including Marth and Roy, had moves made up for them specifically for Smash. So here's what I'm thinking. Standard B could launch a freezing wave from her lance, side B could be an icicle thrust forward, up B could be a rising sweep, and down B could be a counter like a lot of the other reps, or her ice mirror for projectiles. As for a final smash, we could have Glacius, or one of the other ice-themed specials. As far as her overall playstyle, she would need to be well balanced based on her stats and heroes, with a slight emphasis on speed. Long story short, Fjorm would be an excellent choice for Smash Bros., based on her potential fighting style and her relative popularity in heroes, and would add a level of uniqueness that the Fire Emblem reps in Smash desperately need. I'd even go so far as to say that she should replace one of the clones, because all those clones worked so well for the Old Republic.
I'm the quarter guy, and basically I'm just excited that we're getting a new Smash Bros. Game to begin with. And I'm excited to see what they'll show at E3 for the game, but no matter what surprises they come up with, the one thing that's certain is that the Melee fanboys will refuse to let the past die.
I love Monster Hunter when it doesn't keep kicking me in the dick. Why? Why does it keep kicking me in the dick?
Hey, I've got a way to beat this thing.
If you say hit it really hard, I swear.
You put him to sleep, I'll teabag him, and then we hit him really hard.
Okay, that I can manage. Next time, top 10 worst Monster Hunter monsters.
Woo! It's game time.